You can't come to the office and intoxicated. I got drunk off the hour, off the clock. What are you talking? No, no.
Hey, you know what though? Some of these young cats, they really do think a whole different way, like a
Oh,
whole different. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but it sure enough ain't the way I came up. So they really do think that they have all these, like, I don't know if you want to call them rights or whatever consideration they should get just simply for existing. Like, I had a full on conversation with a young guy. I really respect this guy, but we don't see eye to eye, right? I'm that transition phase, he's the young phase, right? And like, I'm trying to explain to him, if you have a job, like our job, where you we work on workload, right? Our job, there's like no one truly assigns you anything. You come in and you just work. There's projects, there's things going on, everything is moving. Whatever you specialize in, you know what you do, you get in there, you make it happen, and you just go. And if you take a 2 hour lunch, nobody's gonna ask you a question. If you work till 8 o'clock at night, nobody's gonna say anything to you. If you come in 15 minutes late, nobody's really gonna say nothing unless you had a meeting that you were supposed to be in, right? And I was trying to have this conversation when I'm like, the job says be here at 8. You supposed to be here at 8. You supposed to be able to work at 8. But this younger generation, in the case he was trying to make, which I can't follow, is more of, no, I'll get here and I'll make sure I get all my work done, and I'll make sure that you don't have any issue with the quality and the timeliness and all of that stuff. But I'll get here when I get here. And I'm like, no,
what?
you know, like,
I,
eight. If your job says you start at 8 o'clock, that doesn't mean you show up at 8 o'clock. That means you show up at like 7:55, so that at 8 o'clock you start working when you start getting paid.
mm,
But that's not how some of these cats see it.
I
They
think it
don't.
comes from the old. You remember the good old days of busy work, and I think the younger
We
generation didn't understand what busy work um, portrayed. When I said how I train people, I say make sure the job gets done. What I'm saying is, if the email comes through, if a person comes in, they ask for a request, get the job done. Just take care of it. That's
Mhm.
your job. Get the job done. Well, what do we do when there's nothing going on? Nothing, because there's nothing going on. Now, how I'm saying it sounds like, oh, they're just hanging around and everything else. Because during my generation, you know what the answer to that question was?
If you
Grab,
can lean, you can clean.
grab a rag, grab a broom, grab a mop. Uncle Ra- I literally, I literally had somebody, and they're not in management anymore. Thank goodness. They're not in management anymore, who literally told somebody, because I'm so happy I have people who trusted me to come to me and tell me stuff because they know I'm not going to throw them under the bus. I literally had somebody who said, well, what do we do if we ain't got nothing to do? Well, do you go around to all the clients and ask them, do you need help with something? No, 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 no. Are you nuts? No. Oh, okay. So I was just checking to see was that the right? No, no.
Well, see, there's a line there. It really depends on what your job is. It
My
really does.
it does, but
Because
that ain't one of
if
the.
you work,
That ain't my
yeah,
hour.
because if you work in a job that is very defined and what your tasks are, and you finished all your tasks, then you finished your task. But see, what's funny to me, and Marlon, this is where you and I we don't match up, right?
Nope.
What's funny to me is employees have no problem. Some employees have no problem with if I finish all my work and I'm supposed to work an 8-hour shift, right? I finish all my work in 5 hours.
Mhm.
They see no issue with coasting for the next 3. Playing on their phone, reading something online, just they're not causing no problems, but they're just sitting there doing nothing for the company who's paying them for these next 3 hours. And they see nothing wrong with that. But they would be highly offended if the company was like, so we're not really giving you guys enough to do over 8 hours. So we're going to schedule you 5 hours going forward because there's no sense in just having wasted productivity time. Then they would be mad.
I thought that story was going to go the other way. We'll give you more tasks.
Well, and
Well, I
I'll
mean, there
tell you
are
why.
those who would do that, but that's, in the time that we're trying to be more efficient in the business world, they're optimizing things, right? They're looking for an excuse to have a computer do your job. They are just itching for an excuse. So they're not going to give you more work unless you're like retail. If you're retail, see, that's the difference. It depends on what your job is, right?
Now,
If you're
that was
customer
my
service
difference.
or retail,
Yeah, that was. I'll just cut you off. That's the difference between what I said about leaning and cleaning and everything. When it comes to retail and restaurants and things like that, yeah, if you ain't got nothing
there's
to do,
literally always something to do.
there's always something to do. Like, you have no excuse. There is always something to do. Office work, that's what I was talking about. Retail,
Right. And when I was talking
workers
about
and
office work,
restaurants, no, you can't use that excuse. Sorry, but
right. But what's jacked up though is like office work. That would be my scenario where obviously the job just doesn't require what we budgeted for it. So let's reallocate time. But employers would be mad now because they're only getting 35 hours a week instead of getting 40. And so why should I pay you for work you're not doing? I just don't get that part. I don't even get that part. But then in the retail world, I personally, when I was a manager in retail, I believed in giving just random extra breaks. Like, I know the thing says for every, what is it? For if you work 8 hours, you get a 30-minute lunch and 2 15s, right? And I was the one that you would have that, but I turn around and give you an extra 10 here and an extra 10 there because just relax, decompress, come back, knock it out. But that's not how everybody runs. Most people will run with, hey, since you're done over here, I need you to go over here. So
the only time I've had an issue with people being on their phones and things like that is, one, don't get comfortable. And that's also something that I always tell absolutely everybody. Do not get comfortable. We just so happen to work at a job where for an hour you may not have nothing to do. You just don't. And the next 2 hours, you really gonna miss that hour when you didn't have nothing to do, because for the next 2 hours you are ripping and running and everything else. And I always sit there and say, don't complain. Don't complain about this had to be done and that had to be done and everything else, because what you're doing is you're bringing light onto the hour that you didn't have anything to do.